Have you ever wondered why your kid is so anxious about going to school the next day? Well, you're going to want to check out this episode. Hi, I'm Dr. Roseann, and I'm a mental health trailblazer. And join me as we have real conversations about real solutions to kids' problems. And today, we're talking about an ever-growing epidemic, school refusal. So we're going to first talk about school anxiety. Let's dive in. This is my series about school anxiety and school refusal. So school refusal is on the rise, and I would be doing a disservice if I didn't talk about school anxiety in general before it manifests itself into school refusal. So in this pandemic world, kids and families are anxious. You hear me talking a lot about it. And there's a lot of reasons. I mean, these are stressful times. Kids have things put upon them outside a developmental norm. We are living in a world where people are supposed to be perfect when they're not. And anxiety develops. And school refusal and school anxiety in general tends to be associated with specific kinds of anxiety, right? So we have stress and we have anxiety, and you should definitely watch that or listen to that. But ultimately, stress is a normal response to things that happen to us. Our system activates, and then it goes back to a baseline that's healthy. And then anxiety really culminates over a single horrific event, but way more commonly over a series of smaller events that compound in our system and create our nervous system to go into a red state. So let's talk about the kinds of anxiety that are generally associated with school anxiety, worries about school. So separation anxiety is often common, and you're more likely to see this with younger kids, even though separation anxiety is very common with PANS and PANDAS, especially if it's a sudden onset. Social anxiety in general tends to be associated with school phobia. Kids that experience social anxiety often are kids that may be shy, and shyness is not a clinical condition. It's just some people. I know my youngest, who is a great personality, is a little shy around people. He doesn't really trust everybody. It's a good characteristic. And he likes to know that the people that he's with are kind of his tribe. And then he's like full on. He's very, very funny. Very funny. But, we always think of shyness as a bad thing. I mean, one of my closest friends, actually two of my closest friends are introverts. And that's what us loud people are for. But social anxiety is different. That's when you really have worries about, what you're going to say, what people say to you, how do you approach things? There's just a lot of anxiety, and it's our number 5 clinical condition. And it's just more likely to be seen with school refusal, especially with teenagers and kids in middle school as social demands increase. Generalized anxiety means, somebody has a clinical disorder where they have worries. They have worries about a lot of things, and their nervous system isn't able to get back into that parasympathetic state. OCD and phobias are different, but they are also 2 forms of clinical conditions that are their own. Yes, they generally sort of fall under anxiety, but they are, way more life disabling in many ways than just generalized anxiety. OCD is based on an irrational fear, and so is phobias. So phobias are specific, right? I have a phobia of bees, bugs, leaving my house, all different kinds of things. OCD is an irrational worry. It's a fear that if you don't do something, something bad will happen. Okay. And so when we have these clinical conditions, your child is at a higher risk for school refusal. But, school anxiety can look different in every age. So we talked about younger kids having more of a separation anxiety and some of these other things, including OCD and phobias, they can actually appear at any age. And some of the most brain on fire type of kids I've ever seen are younger kids that have phobias. I remember many years ago working with a little girl who had a phobia of bugs. And we were able to, through repeated exposures, right, build up her tolerance and understanding that, the thing that she was worried about wasn't going to happen. But social anxiety and these other components, as we have more increases in social demands, you may see more social anxiety. And that is a clinical condition of its own, but school anxiety is going to manifest itself at a higher rate when one of these issues are present. And they can look differently at different ages, but they can appear at any time. It's just that with increased social demands, you're more likely to see kids have, worries about school in general, because it's pretty murky out there socially. Some of the things that the kids that I've worked with have experienced, particularly girls, it's really rough socially. And when kids have one or two people in their tribe that are amazing, they seem to do much better. But shifts in social circles can really create a lot of school anxiety. So what are some of the things you need to look for about school anxiety? These kids tend to have problems with attention and learning. You may see drop-offs in homework, just difficulty in general in learning and paying attention, and really not finding what is successful for them is something you want to look for. You're also more likely to see just behavioral issues and tantrums, for sure. We talked about social skills, but kids with school anxiety tend to have social skill deficits, right? So they may have an interest in social skills, in socializing with their peers, but they may not have that ability to have that back and forth reciprocal communication, and it's very stressful for them. These are kids that are also more likely to have been bullied. And, then we really want to worry about school refusal when bullying is on the table. And whenever your kid is just showing that discomfort and worries about going to school, sometimes what happens, not sometimes, pretty much all the time, you're going to see gastro symptoms, you're going to see physical symptoms, particularly the night before school. So Sunday to Thursday. I years ago worked with a young man who basically threw up every night before school. And after going to a series of doctors, his mom finally took him to me. And, he had school anxiety. He was a top student. And, kids can be doing very well in school and still have school anxiety. Remember, grades are not the benchmark of mental health. You might see panic attacks, which interesting about panic attacks, as much as you see them in the movies and it looks like somebody had a heart attack and they're like, you panic attacks. Kids in particular may not say, I'm having a panic attack, unless you're teaching them those words. They may be feeling sick. They may be feeling anxious, and it's in their body. They feel uncomfortable. They may recoil when you try to hug them. But school anxiety is real, and it's that first warning sign that school refusal could be next. So you really want to spend time with your kids. You want to get to the bottom of it. You want to give them resources and tools, including coping skills, which, I talk about a lot, that kids are missing.